Hello and welcome to the Vixens. I'm here at the table with a core group of 4 Goyles. To my left is Melissa, who is playing
Whoa!
the human monk lady.
It's me.
And then to her left is Reagan, who is playing Sorshe, the half-orc ranger, scout, hunter, tracker lady. And then across the table is Beth, who's playing Mantra, the Tiefling Paladin. And then finally is Abby, who's playing sweet baby Tetra, the wood elf druid, caretaker of nature, and friend of animals. So, once we last left off, you guys remember that
Stop.
we had, you had traveled quite a ways with the Duke Charsane, who you had thought for a brief time was perhaps a vampire. But upon further investigations, Beth, your paladin-like divine powers revealed that he was not, in fact, part of the undead, but identified as a celestial. Now, you took refuge in a barn, and during that time, discovered that the Duke was not sensitive to the sun. And upon this discovery and further rest, you decided to venture further into the small town. Now, you guys, prior to cameras rolling, decided that Sina would go in ahead in her disguise and scout out what is in the town and what kind of people are there. Having never been this far north, you aren't really sure what to expect. So, Sina embarks in her disguise. She goes into the town, and you guys kind of hanging out in the barn with the Duke are waiting. How long do you wait for your comrade to scout
24
and
hours.
return? You wait a full 24 hours?
No, like half an hour.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's say you
45
wait.
minutes.
So here's what's happening. You're talking about things. You're gearing up, and you wait a half an hour, and then 45 minutes. And mind you, this town is like a half mile away, so it's not like she had to travel far to get there. Like you're on the outskirts of the town in a farm. So you wait 45 minutes, and then an hour. Still no return.
I'm not worried. She got a day.
I kind of want to go in there and investigate
I
what's
agree.
going on.
Let us embark.
Let's try to figure out where she is.
Okay. All right, so you gear up and go. You start walking into the town, and it's not a big city. This is a small town. And as you're walking down like the main and pretty much only road headed into the town, you notice like it seems to be like a normal day. There are farmers with their carts full of like crops and stuff heading into the town, and you see people walking, you see people, a couple people on horses. Nothing really extravagant. These all seem to be pretty much common people. Most of the racial mix-up that you see is humans, elves, half-elves, and you see a few halflings. The Duke is pleasantly walking along with you in his, commoner clothes that you guys were able to acquire from the farmer. So he just basically looks like a normal elf now, walking along with you guys. And a little bit further down the road, you see that this town has not a wall, but like a fence, basically, like kind of like a
community.
Yeah, like it doesn't have like proper defenses. It doesn't look like it's like a fancy town. It basically has like a fence, a tall fence around the town. But there is like a main gate, and there's like just one old human man who's like at the gate, and he seems to just be like sitting on a stool, waving to people as they walk in and out of town. The gates are open. Doesn't seem like there'd be any problem with you guys going into the town. So you walk by, you go into the town, and the town is basically about like 3 blocks long. And there are buildings kind of on either side of the main street, and then a few buildings kind of off to the east and west from this main road that goes through the town. It's just a dirt road. You see a few inns, like 2-story inns. You see like a trading post in the middle of the town, and there's like a lot of people who are there with their carts and wagons. There's like little, food vendors, and then there's people selling things, and there are a few tents like set up with people selling things. Pretty much anything that you would see in a little marketplace. There's like a well in the center of the town. People are coming and going. A few shops, stuff like that. So what do you do?
Where would Sina go?
So we don't see anything out of the ordinary, right? There's nothing, it's pretty average.
It looks like a very average village. I mean, it's the only thing that you obviously don't notice is a lot of racial diversity. Like, you do not see any dwarves. You don't see tieflings. You don't see dragonborn.
Are they being weird towards us?
You know what? I will not even have you make an insight roll, because several of you have large insights. You do not get the sense that you've gotten from other places that these people seem bothered by your appearance. Like, they don't seem to be bothered by you being a tiefling or Sorshe being a half-orc. Like, nobody is staring at you guys or anything like that.
So I don't think any of the people would have done something to Sina. So I think that since we can't find her, it's something she's doing on her own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You do notice that one of the inns seems to be a little more active than the others. Like, the other inns just seem to be like normal buildings, but this inn has like the windows and doors are open, and like the main level, like kind of where the bar is very busy. Like, there's a lot of people in there.
In this small town?
Yeah, like, it looks like maybe a lot of travelers. You see like different kind of levels of wealth. Like, you see commoners in there, but you also see some like people with fancier clothing in there. You see a few people in like different kinds of armor in there. So it looks like there's maybe a little more of a mix of people hanging out in that inn.
Why are we here again?
It's just a pit stop on your way north. Bearing in mind that you guys don't have a lot of information other than you want to start finding out anything you can about the land to the north, because the northern part of the continent is really not claimed by any kingdoms. It's kind of like the Wild West. Like, there are towns and people who live there, but there's no like king or government running it.
Okay, I say that we try to find a library of some sort and do research on that and on Old Elfish, so we can maybe communicate with our friend a little better.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We can also go into that busy place, and because since there's a lot of travelers in there, we can ask around about things and where they've been.
So how about we split up? 2 of us go with the older elf guy to the inn and see if anybody speaks his language or like is proficient in older elfish languages, and then 2 other people go to the library and do research.
So you aren't sure if there is a library here? Do you like ask any of the locals or shopkeepers or?
Yeah, just
Library,
one of the people
bookstore.
at the marketplace.
Okay. So you walk up to, there's like a tent where like a woman is selling different kinds of textiles, like cloth and blankets and clothing and stuff. So she sees you. She's just like a human woman. She sees you and she's like, "Good day.
Good
Welcome."
morning. Hello. You would happen to know if there's any, perhaps a bookstore or a library in this town?
No. I suppose the closest thing might be the temple. There's one temple here in the town. They have books, and there are.
Do you have any wealthy men who might live here and have like a collection of books?
No, not so much really. There aren't any noble families here in town, but there are travelers who pass through.
Okay, just wondering.
Traders
Thank you.
and whatnot. You might find some of them in the inn over there, but but the temple would have learned people who are educated
Where
and
would
perhaps a
this-
small library.
Where would this temple be? Do you mind showing us?
She's like, yes. So if you continue through the main road, just before you hit the northern gate, to your left, you will see the temple.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay.
Okay, so someone's gonna go to the temple? Two people are gonna go to the temple?
Two people should go to the temple.
So who's going to the temple? Who's going to the?
I wanna go to
I'll
the
go to
temple.
the inn.
You're going to go to the inn.
Yeah.
I'll go to the inn with her.
Okay.
I'll go
so
to
you
the
guys are
temple.
going to go to the temple.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do their temple thing first. So here's what happens. You guys go following the information. You head a few blocks up, and you see just off to the left that there's certainly not a grand temple, but it's like a 2-story church building, more or less. And you see that it seems to be kind of a universal temple that's reverent to the 4 elemental gods and goddesses. So you see the symbols of all 4 of the elemental deities. And there's a nice, open doorway, and you hear sounds inside, so it sounds like some people are inside.
Okay, so you wanna go in?
Yes.
So you walk into this white building, and there's like a little entryway, and you see there's like candles burning and incense, and then there's like a water bowl, and then there's like a little pit, like a bowl of sand and stuff. So you kind of get the vibe that like all of the different deities are represented: earth, wind, fire, and water. And through that entryway then is a larger open area, and you see that there aren't like wooden pews or anything, but there are like mats, like prayer mats. You see a variety of different people in there, like on their knees praying and stuff in different ways. And across the room you see an older looking elf man who looks like maybe he's a cleric, like he's wearing robes. And he has like different collars on and stuff, and he's kind of lighting some candles and just moving around.
Okay, so I'm gonna go up to him and just ask him what he knows about old elvish things
So
in the
he
area.
sees you approaching, and he looks at both of you, and then he's like, "Good day, sisters. How may I help you?"
Hi, do you happen to have any history or information on old elvish texts, or perhaps the presence of that in this location?
Well, we do maintain a small library. I'm not sure specifically how much historical content there would be, but you are welcome to peruse if you wish. You cannot take anything, of course, but follow me. He leads you off to like an alcove, like a side room, basically, and he pulls this curtain back. And it's not a big room. It's probably like 15 by 15, but there are wood shelves built into the walls that kind of go floor to ceiling all the way around. There's a window with light, and then in the center of the room there's like a work table. And he's like, "You may peruse the library if you wish. Feel free. I will be tending to my various tasks here in the temple." He nods to you and walks out of the room.
Okay.
So you can make an investigation check, both of you,
Let's do
to
that.
see what your research uncovers.
16.
Okay.
5.
So you're kind of looking through. The majority of the books tend to be religious based, but there are some historical things as well. And in one of the historical books, you're able to find out kind of a history of the kingdom of Malakun. And in that history, it talks about the lineage of the Malakuni, which are the noble family of elves that rule the kingdom and established it thousands of years ago. And it seems like basically an entire rundown on the whole dynasty and how it began on the western coast of the continent, and then it expanded, and it goes through a period of some wars and stuff. The interesting thing that you find is several hundred years ago, several centuries ago, the dynasty reorganized and eliminated the different levels of hierarchy within the nobility. So the monarchy, the structure of the government literally was changed. They eliminated every rank between the king and lords. So it doesn't go into specific details naming names, but like the titles, any titles between king and lord were eliminated, which includes things like duke, prince, princess, duchess, baron, baroness, count, countess, like all these different names. The thing that you find interesting though in your research is that it doesn't specify what those people became. It just says that there, after this point in history, there was only the king, and then everybody else who was noble but not the king became a lord or lady. It doesn't talk about Elven language as much. It doesn't speak specifically to Elvish. So that's about as far as you get with the research.
What does it say specifically about the king?
It says that each king, it follows a patriarchal lineage, so that the oldest male in each generation was the one that inherited the throne. And that, as you kind of are going through this research process, there's a fair amount who, some of them were had great long lineages, and some died from sickness, or some died in battle. But there's always been a male heir following that line. And they always inherited the title of king.
What do you think?
I don't know.
You feel like if you were looking for specifically something about ancient languages, that maybe this library doesn't have enough material to do your research well.
Yeah.
Not that you didn't find it, but maybe it's just not here.
Should we meet back with the others and discuss what we found?
I think we should go find them.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna learn anything here. Maybe there's somewhere along our journey where we can stop and figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so pause, back to them, because that took a little while, but I'm going to go back to you guys. So you guys walk over to this inn, and you get to the door, and now as you're closer, you hear a lot of people talking, conversations, blah, 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 blah. People talking in the common human tongue, people talking in Elvish. Quite a mix of people in here. But yet, no dwarves, no dragonborn, no other half-orcs, no other gnomes, no other races other than humans, elves, halflings, no tieflings, none of that. But you guys go in and you find a spot where there's an open table if you want to sit down. The Duke is with you, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
So
right.
he sits down happily, and a serving girl comes over and gets your food order, and
Okay, and then I say loudly, a single gold piece to anybody who can tell me what this man is about to say. And then we have, what's his face, Duke Sarzane say something really loudly.
how do you do that? He looks at you and he's like,
And I say, I go like this, and I say like body, 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 like,
he's like,
Yep. Yep.
Killing it.
Yep. Everybody's quiet.
Does
because
anybody hear us?
Yeah.
So first of all, let's see if anybody even. So like everybody's, for the most part, as you guys are looking around, seems like confused. Like, so you say the whole thing about like a gold piece to anybody who can identify, and like that gets people's attention. Like people are like, huh, gold piece. And then he like, you encourage him to speak, he speaks, and then you're looking around and it seems like most people are like confused and a few people are like, what is that? And people are shrugging.
Okay.
Make, both of you, make insight checks. Don't forget to add in your modifier.
6.
Insight. 16.
So you're looking around and you don't, it seems like most of the people are just confused and have no idea. You notice, I don't know why did my voice just out? You notice that there is somebody who seems to not be confused.
Okay.
Although they're not saying anything. You notice like as you're looking around the room and she's looking around the room, like most people are like, yeah.
Okay. So then.
People are like, and they go back to their drinks. But you notice one person over by the bar
Okay. Yeah.
who is a female elf with long blonde hair, and she's like kind of looking in your direction, and she doesn't look confused, and she sees you seeing her, and then she like turns around and goes back to her drink.
Okay. So then I say, all right, folks, sorry for wasting your time. And then I go over to the bar and I stand next to her and I start ordering my drink.
Okay.
And I start like, I bring over the guy. And
You motion for him to come over?
yes.
Okay.
And I make eyes for him to look at her, and like to like have him like think that she's cute.
He like looks at her and he just shrugs.
Yeah. So then I say the thing again. I make him do. I say like talk. Like, and then I look at her and I say he just said that you're cute.
She looks at you and she looks at him, and then she like looks around kind of suspiciously and she's like, that's not what he said.
And I say, how would you know?
She kind of like looks into her drink and she goes, who are you?
Can I get up? I'm gonna get up.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
see
get up.
Sorshe and the Duke over by the bar talking to a blonde elf.
And then
Yeah.
I say, whatever you want me to be.
Nope. I walk over there and I'm like, we're just trying to understand some things that our friend is saying because he's having trouble communicating with us.
Yeah.
She goes,
We need
I
some
would
help.
bet he would be. He's speaking a dead language.
And what language would that be?
Well, it's Elvish, but it's ancient Elvish.
Do you know anything about where this language could be from?
From
What-
here, but like several thousand years ago.
Okay, what did he just say?
I mean, it's hard to say. She goes, I understood parts of it, but I've never heard it spoken. Like I've read it.
Okay, what do you think like about what he said? Did he call us idiots?
No, I think he was asking something about food, but he was looking at me.
Oh.
Does he think that I'm like a servant who's supposed to feed them?
No, that's not it at all.
I think he just thinks that you are a farmer. I think he thinks that everybody here is a farmer.
He's
Because
just
it's a small
asking
town.
about food. He was just curious. Do you mind trying to introduce yourself to him?
And
Just try. Just try.
She's like, does he read?
Um,
Maybe I
yes,
could
he
write
does.
stuff.
He's really rich.
She's like, I wouldn't know how to
ancient.
pronounce the words.
Okay, yeah, he would. I have paper and pen on me.
She's like, we shouldn't do this here.
Why?
This is very strange.
I don't feel comfortable going alone with you.
Well,
Oh my god.
she's like, I'm not exactly comfortable going along with you.
Do you mind if we have you? We just are gonna get a room at this inn, and maybe.
Well, I have a room upstairs.
Do you mind?
Okay, go to the second floor. It's room 7 on the left. But wait a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank
She
you.
like finishes her drink and sets it down on the bar, and then you see she kind of like walks up these stairs and
Okay, I'm gonna leave them alone with you. I'm going to the woods to find an animal for him to eat.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go hunt.
okay. So you wait a few minutes and then you go up with
Yep.
the Duke.
I head
and
up
you,
with the Duke.
I'm gonna go
You
get him
leave the
food.
bar. Okay.
You just had to make him write 3 more storylines.
All right. So you
He's so upset.
don't split the party. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and Sina 4. All right. So you wait a few minutes. You
Yeah.
go up with the Duke. He's like, again, he's like confused, and you're like, come on. So he follows you. You go upstairs. You go to this room 7. Knock on the door. She opens the door. She like looks out, and she's like, "Where's your friend?"
She had to go
Find our other friends.
find our other friends, and I don't. I just feel like this would have been a better,
She like
safer
looks out in the
interaction.
hallway, and she's like, "All right, come on in."
She's like, shut up.
So you go in. It's a very simple room. There's like a small table like by the window, and you notice she has like some parchment and a quill and some ink, and so she's like, "Here, sit down." And she just points to like one of the beds. There's like 2 beds in there. So she's like, "Well, what do you want me to try to communicate to him?"
Just try something little at first. Try something easy. Just try to introduce yourself. I want to see if you guys are able to communicate.
Okay. She starts like scrawling this writing, and then she like holds up the piece of paper to him, and you see on his face he's like, and he starts like rattling off, and she's like, "Whoa, slow down," and she's like, and she writes something else, and she holds it up, and he's like,
Okay. I try to push the pen and paper over to him and see if he knows how to do any of that?
She's like, "Well, what do you want me to ask?"
Ask him if he's able to communicate with you on paper, if he knows how to do that.
He can.
Okay,
If he
then
can read
give it to
it.
him. Give it to
She gives him the paper and the pen, and he starts writing down this stuff, and starts writing and writing, and she's like looking over his shoulder, and then he finishes and he shows her the paper, and she looks and she's like, She goes over to her backpack and she like ruffles through her backpack and pulls out like an old book and like opens it up, and she's looking at the paper and like looking at the book. She's like, "I'm not familiar with this. What is this term?" She's like looking through.
Okay, at this point, I come back with a water thing.
No, you don't.
I can't.
No, you're like just leaving town by this point. It's gonna take you a little while. You'll get back around the same time as them, maybe, if you're not dead. All right. So then she writes down this stuff, and she's looking through a book, and it's taking like several minutes. And he just seems to be like happy. He's like, and he points to the paper. He's like, and he points to her.
Did she find it? Did she find the term that she was looking for?
She's like, "I can make some sense of this," but she's like, "There are some words he's using that I don't know. Like they're not, I can't translate them."
Okay. What's your best idea
So
of what it says?
basically, he says that you woke him up from a long sleep, but it's not really sleep. It's a different word.
No, yeah. I think I can
Do you
guess
know what
that.
he means by that?
Yeah.
And then he says that his brother would have him sleep again, but he doesn't want to.
Okay.
But it's this word that's not sleep, but it's like sleep. Do you
Yeah.
know what he means?
I think I can guess what he means.
Eternal slumber.
So,
Who is his brother?
if I tell you something, will you promise that you'll just keep it in this room?
Is it bad or good?
It's not either. It's just the way we found him wasn't exactly normal. You see, me and my friends were traveling, and we encountered this large, almost like a tomb, basically, that he was in. And it seems that he was in there for quite a few hundred, if not thousands, of years.
She like looks at him and then looks back at you. Okay.
And I guess we did. We woke him up. We woke him up from a pretty eternal slumber. And now he's coming with us because he has to help us and we have to help him.
Some kind of magical sleep?
Yeah, you could say that.
I have an idea. She takes the pen and she writes some more on a piece of paper. And then she shows it to him. And he's like, and he starts explaining. She's like, right. And so he's like, So he writes more. And then he finishes and she goes back to her book and is like looking through and she takes like little annotations and she's like looking through again and she writes this down and she's like, and then she stops. And she looks at him and then she looks at you and she's like, do you know where about you found him?
Can't remember.
Was it here in the kingdom somewhere?
Come again?
I'm not there.
Like it wasn't in a city.
No.
Did he tell you why he was in this sleep?
Yeah, it had something to do with his family clash.
Uh-huh. Did he explain who his family is?
He said he was the Duke at some point.
Yes.
So that would mean that
He's the Duke.
it's the royal family.
So if I'm translating this right,
Uh-huh.
his title is Duke, but this passage, what he wrote here doesn't make any sense. This is what I'm confused about, and I can't find anything to reference this in my book.
Okay.
The wording's odd because it seems as if he's referring to himself as the one who should be king.
He's tried to tell us about that a little bit. He's tried to tell us that's the reason that there's anger within their family, and that's the reason that his brother put him to sleep.
She looks at him and then she takes the pen and you see her start, instead of writing, she starts drawing something.
Okay.
Like on another sheet of paper, but like it's over the shoulder so you can't quite see what she's drawing. And then she draws this, she finishes drawing it and she shows it to him and he goes, aha, pakusa, marakuni. And she goes, she sets the paper down and she's like, does anyone else know about this and you and him?
No, just
You probably want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know that I should know about this.
What?
This is very dangerous.
Why is it dangerous?
On many levels, it's dangerous. For one, let's say that he's not who he claims to be.
Okay.
Pretending to be someone in the royal family is an offense considered treason and is punishable by death. Number two, let's say that he is who he claims to be. She's like looking at all the papers now and she's like, if he's who he claims to be, he should have been dead for hundreds of years.
Yes.
And he's not. And somehow he's not, and you now are traveling with him.
Mhm.
and he's a threat, an imminent threat to the king, to the current king. But what's confusing is that I showed him this symbol, and she points to the symbol that she drew. She goes, this is the symbol of the king from 300 years ago. Then she reaches into her pouch and she like roots around for some coins, and then she pulls out like a gold coin. And she shows him the gold coin, and he nods and he smiles. She goes, that's the current king. This is Tertingi Malakuni, the current king.
So how does he recognize?
Well, either they all bear a uncanny resemblance to each other, which is possible in families, I suppose, or who he's saying was from this symbol 300 years ago is the same person. Who here he is saying is his brother.
We've been trying to help him get back up north.
He doesn't belong north. If he's who he says he is, he belongs in the kingdom of Malak, or in the capital city of Malak, on the throne.
Which from
She's like,
from us right now.
I don't know how much more I can help you, but I don't think it's a good idea that you share this with anyone else. Because anyone loyal to the king, this could be a big problem.
Okay.
Now, do you want me to explain this to him?
No, thank you. Explain. What do you think would be a good idea?
Do you think that he knows that the current king is maybe the same person who put him in the magical sleep 300 years ago?
I
It was more
don't. I
than
don't
300
think he
years ago,
does.
wasn't it?
Don't think he does. And I think telling him would just anger him.
Does
even
he
more.
know how long he was asleep?
Ooh. I don't think he does. No.
Kind of.
So
we
he
told
thinks,
He
can't
didn't understand us. Also, you're not here.
she's like, yeah. So, here's what we're gonna do. She's like blowing on the ink to let it dry. She's like, so I'm gonna give you all these papers, and you can take him and go somewhere, and I'm going to leave. She starts packing up like her clothes and shoving him into a bag, and she's like, and then we'll just pretend like we never met each other, and that'll be all. And she's like packing up her stuff, and he's like looking at her and looking at you, and he's like, Gosha, what's it doing?
Do you know what he's trying to say?
She's like, nope, don't want to know. This is bad. We could all be in huge trouble.
But we haven't been. I've been traveling with my friends, and we've been okay.
Really? That's astounding. Maybe I'm the only person who has an education that you've run across, but I'm pretty sure that if anyone figured out who he was, you would be in enormous danger. Maybe it is a good idea that you guys go north, because staying in this kingdom is not a good idea. Unless you want to help him somehow figure out how to reconnect with his family or take control of the kingdom.
I guess that's what he was trying to get us to do.
You and what army? She goes, the king has the largest army on the continent. Malakun has the largest army on the continent. Of all.
I tried.
She keeps packing her shit. She's like
I'm
rolling
like,
up clothes
you
and
were the
shoving them
first
into a
time
backpack.
we've been able to communicate with him.
Okay,
and-
look, I want to help you, and he seems really nice. But do you understand? If someone loyal to the king found out that this person, who is a blood relative to the king, who right here, she holds up the words that you can't read. She's like, right here, this translates to should have been king. Man who should have been king. Him. And she's like pointing to it, and as she's explaining it to you, he nods. He's like, yeah, Groshko Oska Malakuni.
We have been holding up great. My friends and I'm traveling with 3 other people. We're very well prepared, but you're the first time that we've been able to communicate with him. And we can't not have that.
Roll a persuasion check.
I just need everybody to blow on it. Okay. Oh, I have 0 persuasion. 10.
Oh, a 10. Right down the middle. She's like, all right, look. Where are your friends and how long is it going to be before they get here? Because I'm not staying around, but I'll try to translate a couple more things for you guys, and then I'm leaving. I think it's a good idea that you guys leave as soon as possible.
Okay. My friends went to go research at the library to see if they could find anything about Old Elvish, and my other friend went hunting. I don't know how long it's going to be.
Right around that time, you guys are walking back to the inn from the temple. You walk back to the inn, and you get to the inn, and it's crowded and full of people, but your friends aren't there. What do you do?
Should we ask around to see if anyone is?
No, we should bring attention to it.
Yeah.
How about we just go to the bartender and ask if he saw an orc lady?
You do. And he's like, yeah. He's like, she was in here with a blonde elf and a blondish white-haired elf man and a shorter human woman. And then they kind of all went off in their own ways. The elf woman's renting a room upstairs. You're not going to start any trouble, though, are you?
We're just looking for our friends. What room is it?
I can't quite remember. I wonder if there's something that could jog my memory.
Can we just flip him a gold coin?
Ooh, a whole gold? He's like, room 7.
You really could have just said any other form of
Listen.
currency. That was
I like
smart.
spending money.
Okay, so we're going up to room 7.
Minus off your gold.
It's
Okay,
our gold, not my gold.
you go
Yeah.
upstairs. Right around this time, you're coming back with 2 rabbits that you caught.
Okay. I one of the rabbits I skinned
Mm-hmm.
and I cooked
Okay,
because I can do that real quick because I'm a savage.
yeah.
And then in the other thing, I emptied out its blood into one of my water sacks,
Okay,
and so it's just full of blood.
okay,
And then I go upstairs
okay.
and I hand the bag of blood.
So, you guys go upstairs, knock, knock, knock. She looks up and she's like,
Those are probably my friends. They're probably my friends.
she pulls out a dagger and goes over the door, opens it a little bit. What do your friends look like?
One of them is an elf.
She opens the
A
door.
little louder.
You see a blonde elf woman open the door. She's like, come in.
Hi, sexy.
And then shortly thereafter, you come in. So you're all in this room. And like, you guys get there and the Duke starts like rattling off words and he points to the blonde elf woman and the pieces of paper and the symbols and just talking, chatting up a storm.
Okay.
So the blonde elf woman is like, I'll tell you what I told your friend. And she does. She explains it all. And she's like, I'm pretty sure that he might be maybe the brother of the king.
The older brother?
Young.
from 300 years
I
ago?
don't know.
Wait, I thought it was like 3,000 years ago.
Okay, so if they put
Because the language hasn't been spoken in like thousands of years.
Yes. So here's the thing. This translation says that he should have been king, which would imply that he would be the older brother of the king.
So the younger brother put him to sleep so that he could be the king.
Mm-hmm.
But I
So
think
the younger brother would probably be upset if we showed up with him.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we shouldn't do that.
before she leaves, I want to ask her one thing about, because he was pointing at symbols in the like tomb place we were at, and we still don't know anything about that.
She's like, well, I have some stuff in my book. She like opens the book in front of you and starts like paging through stuff. And as she's paging through, you notice the Duke like kind of looking over the shoulder, and he's like, Osha, imsaka, malakuni ha, watoshkas. And he starts like talking and pointing to different things. And you notice a couple of the symbols are similar.
I pull out the paper and the pen, and I ask him to write down what he's saying.
So he writes down a bunch of stuff, and then he hands it to the blonde elf, and she's like looking at it, and she's like, oh, what is this even? And she like takes the book and looks back, and she's writing notes down. And then she looks up at you and she goes, how did you know that he was thousands of years old?
Because the language hasn't been spoken for thousands of years, and like
On the tomb, it said
on the
something.
tomb.
It spelled it really bad as well, like 1,000 years old bad.
Yeah.
But also, like, we were in his tomb, and there were like pieces of armor that hadn't been used in thousands of years.
He keeps referring to something. I don't have a way to translate it. Hold on. She writes something down and she shows it to him, and he's like, and he takes the quill and he lays out a fresh piece of paper, and he starts drawing. And he's drawing for like many minutes. And after a while, you see that he's drawing like a map. And he draws a map, and it basically looks like the continent, like the same continent that you guys are on. Outlines and the ocean around it, and like the mountains in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then he draws like an arrow to the east, and he starts drawing another thing. And it's like another map. And there's mountains in the middle, and there's coasts and oceans.
He drew another continent.
He draws another continent,
Is it a continent that exists today?
not that you know of.
So
He's Atlantean.
Does he think he can get somewhere, or we can take him somewhere where nothing is nothing is there anymore?
or maybe he's just more educated than us.
Maybe there's a lost continent.
He points to you, and he points to the blonde elf, and then he points to his ears, and your ears.
Oh, that's where he came from.
He goes, "Oshka matit watashkoska meshko," and he points to her ears.
Be different ears.
Okay, wait.
Amashk watesh.
Is he saying that,
Ask
that
him.
he came from the eastern continent and they like enslaved the people here?
He starts writing more,
Okay.
and he goes through a page, and then he gets a fresh page and writes more.
I
And
think
then he gives it to the blonde elf girl, and she's like, oh my God. She starts like translating it, and she's looking through, and she's like, there are whole sentences that don't make any sense to me, that I don't know how to translate. There are words here that there's no, she's like, maybe if I had other books, but like, this doesn't make sense. He's saying that this other, she points to the words, and then she like points to the maps that he drew, and he's like, and he explains. And then she's like, it looks like he's saying that, she goes, Nuof Otmai? And she points to the continent that you guys are on. And he's like, Osa, Nuof Otmai. And she goes, Imshaka. Imshaka. He goes, Arakazin. And he points to the other continent.
Oh.
And she goes, Arakazin? And he goes, Osa, Arakazin. Imsha Sharsain, Wata, Arakazin.
What-
She seems confused, and then she's like, he's from another place. His family, and then she points to the words again, and she goes, Osha Malakuni Arakazin? And he's like, Malakuni Arakazin. Malakuni. And then he points to her, he goes, Malakuni. She seems confused, and then she's like, I think he's trying to say that elves, like me and her, are like from the Malakuni.
So he was supposed to be king of the elves.
But he's saying that the elves are from Arakazin, the other continent.
She's like, Malakuni wa Arakazin. And he goes, he's like, Oshaka batikin taraskuba. Nesa, woka, Arakazin ata. And she's like, she's like, elves don't have pointed ears in Arakazin?
Or
She's
they're
like,
not
I don't
elves.
understand. He's trying to say something about
They're not.
the elves, but they don't have pointed ears in Arakazin. Like, they have human ears.
So they're human, maybe, is what Arakazin is a human territory or a non-elf territory. Malakun is a majorly elf territory.
She seems like confused, and then he points to the maps again, and he goes, Malakuni Arakazin. Malakuni Nuof Otmai.
So they got pointed ears when they came here.
She's like, she writes that down, and she shows it to him, and he's like, Hosa.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the papers that he wrote. I'm gonna fold them up and I'll put them in my knapsack because she can't translate the rest of them. But like, we should probably keep those on us.
Yeah. And then can we just be like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Make an insight check. Because you know something. I'll let you make it with it. Actually, it's not an insight check. It's basically you remembering something. Make an intelligence check, just a straight intelligence check.
9 plus 3, 12.
Okay. You remember something that you found out.
Like a thing.
With your divine magical power, you know that he's not an elf. He's a,
Celestial.
Yeah, celestial.
so you know that.
You can't be a celestial elf.
No,
So why does he look like an elf?
I'm telling you that because your character would know this.
Okay, I'm gonna make a history check.
You can. And you
13.
Okay. You know from history that the Kingdom of Malakun and the royal family that's ruled it since it started are elves. Specifically high elves, which he looks like. But you also know from your divine sense that he is not an elf, he's a celestial.
Is that the reason that they didn't let him become king? Is that
Are you sharing this out loud with the people and this blonde woman? And
I
also,
will-
are you asking that out loud?
I don't think
Well,
we
I
should
have
talk
to-
about this any further with her.
Yeah, because I
She
think
already knows a lot more than.
She very clearly doesn't want to get us in trouble.
I know, but what if
She's-
she gets caught and then questioned? It's better for her to not know as much.
Yeah,
She's the
because
only way
we're
we have
putting
to
her in danger
She's the only way we have to communicate with him.
for now, unless we find a
Yeah, but
book
the
or
next
something.
person we might find might not be
What
as.
about we just
I don't mean a
ask
person,
her
I
what
mean
the
like a
word
book.
celestial means to him?
Yeah, ask her that.
Okay.
You should probably also
So I-
tell the group what you know.
Well, she can't. Well,
right,
the blonde goes
right,
there.
right.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask her. What does the word celestial mean to him? Can you ask him that?
She's like, I can try. She writes this down. She shows it to him, and he looks at it and he's like, ha ha ha.
Okay.
This guy reminds
Can
me
you
of
ask?
Sin.
Can you
Yeah.
ask him if he is a celestial and his
She points to it and she points to him, and he goes, Hosu, Malakuni Lan, Arakazin.
How old are you?
She writes that, and he writes back. She's like, 3,000 years. She's like, that can't be right. Elves don't live that long. That can't be right.
It must be because of the slumber. He just
Yeah,
messed up because of
it's
the
just a
slumber.
Yeah.
That was good. Well played. I'll give you advantage on your deception check.
I have to do a deception check.
Yes, because you're
Advantage,
blind.
advantage.
You get advantage.
Natural
Oh,
20.
natural 20. There you go.
You need it.
Right in the clutch, Sorshe. You were sweating at it. All right, so she buys it. She's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, a magical effect would have extended his lifespan.
She's gonna die in a minute.
She's like, that's very odd though, even then. He's an ancient elf.
Yeah, well, you
That-
know, magic.
Why did you ask if he understands what a celestial is though? That part I don't understand. Is that
Oh.
It's something that
Because
I'm really into.
Maybe celestials have not curved ears in Alakazam or whatever.
Alakazam?
she writes something down to him and shows it to him, and he's like, oh, Sue.
What do you ask
She
him?
just asked him if he was a celestial.
Well, she already did that.
Oh,
What did he ask him?
She writes something else down.
I
Shows it to him.
chloroform her.
Do,
You don't have
do you,
chloroform.
first of all, you don't have chloroform with you, but she shows it
he
to
was
him.
gonna buy it too. He got
And-
excited.
And you see him kind of like lean back, and he goes, oh, Sue.
Okay.
Okay, what
What
did
are
he
y'all
just say?
talking about?
She's like, he doesn't look like me or her. What you see is not how he really looks.
Why?
So he's a transformer.
No, why?
He's not an elf.
We've
What if he
figured that
is?
out.
He looks like
Can
one.
he shapeshift?
She writes something else down and holds it up, and he goes, Osuha.
Can he
She's like,
shapeshift?
Malakuni wa'ata? And he's like, Malakuni wa'ata.
Wait,
Hatoto-sama.
if he's so old,
She goes,
can't he speak other languages?
The Malakuni are not elves. That's what he just said. The Malakuni are Lan. I don't know what this means. Lan.
Okay.
She goes, Wa'a. She writes something down, and she goes, Wa Malakuni Lan Arakazin? And he goes, Oka. Malakuni Lan. Malakuni Arakazin. Lan Waka Ios.
Celestial. That's what Elon means celestial, is what you just said.
She's like the Malakuni
So
are
that's
this
why the
this
king-
other thing called Lan, which
king is
I
so
think
old
is
too.
his word
Yeah.
for a celestial. And Lan come from somewhere else.
Like
Well,
Somewhere he
Sky?
called Eos.
is
When
that,
he says
think
it, when she says it, he's like, Osu Eos.
He's a god.
He pointed to the sky.
Thank you for your
Not
time.
not gods.
Ooh,
She goes. She
listening.
writes something down, and she shows it to him. He goes, Okawa, Doughboyski, and he writes something back. And she goes, not. He said, not gods, not gods, but something like a celestial, maybe that he calls Lan.
Is he an angel?
Maybe. She writes something else down and holds it up, and he just laughs. She's like, I asked him if he has wings, and he just laughed at me.
So no. Does he have? Does he have any powers?
Well,
Could he?
I asked him if he could show his true form.
If he's this old, why
Oh, and
doesn't
what did
he
he
know
say?
more languages?
What did he say when you
Well,
asked
he
him?
didn't say anything. He just kind of leaned back. She points to it again, and he goes,
Yeah.
He takes the quill and he writes something down. And he shows it to her, and she's like, He said he doesn't have enough. Something.
I
It's-
hand
it's
him the sack
enough.
of blood.
It's what?
He smells it, and he's like,
Old blood. It's not good. It's not good enough. Take it back. What were you saying?
He goes, Acosta Canresh Iska.
Okay, so then
He will blow up.
we should kill her. We should have him eat her.
No,
Why
we
would
shouldn't.
we do that?
because she knows too much. He already asked her if she was food.
The
like,
only
literally
thing
half
she
an hour
has
ago.
done is help us.
Yes, and now she's leaving because she's scared. So I think
I
that
think
we should have him
maximum
eat
we should just knock her out.
her. Okay, yes.
So
we
she's
should-
not.
able to
I
drink.
choke her out.
She's
So
been
she
like
passes out.
translating for you.
Reagan.
She put her bag
What?
down and everything. She's not.
What?
Doesn't look like
What?
she's leaving imminently. So he seems. He takes the quill again and he writes something down and shows it to her, and she's like, "Did you find something related to the moon when you found him? The moon? Was there something about nighttime or the moon?
Oh
Wasn't
yeah.
there carvings?
Was-
There was carvings,
He,
right?
he doesn't like going out in
Was
the
there
daytime.
something?" She
No,
writes
he-
something down
he
and
does.
shows it to him.
He doesn't mind doing it, but he didn't like it. Remember the first day? He
And
didn't
he
like
shakes
Yeah.
his head, and then he writes something else, and he points up.
Maybe ask him about the sun.
it. Oh, maybe.
She goes, no, he says colors in the sky. Did you see, when you found him, were there colors in the sky?
Is he talking about the things that like went from red to green? Were those like high up?
Oh, the
Like when we
we did
the-
find change in lights that would indicate like there were
Like-
doors.
Whoa, where you found him?
Yeah.
She starts writing something out, and she has to go to her book, and she writes out more, and then she shows it to him, and he's like, oh, cool. And then he writes some more, and he points up, Eos.
Was that the gods? Or
She's like,
the moms?
he keeps referring to something about colors in the sky.
Ask him if there are more of him that he knows of.
well, we
She
know that
writes
they're-
down something.
Well,
Yeah, because if one of
besides
them
She
wasn't
holds it up
asleep,
to him.
then we could talk to them and they would know like this language, like present day language.
He said yes.
He takes the quill and he writes something down. She goes, there were 8. She goes, Akuta mo arakazin? And he's like, Osu.
Word. If you're a celestial, you can't die.
He said there were 8 who came from Arakazin.
Ask him to point on the map where they all are right now, or where he thinks they are.
But it's been 300 years.
She writes something
I know,
down.
but, like,
He
and
doesn't know that. He doesn't
Yeah.
know how long.
He nods and he goes over to the map and he points by where you guys, the kingdom that you are in now. He goes, Malakuni.
Mhm.
And he points across here. And he says another name, and he points to another area. He says another name. He points to another. He says another name. Basically, kind of all around. There are like 6 different names that he points to around the edge of the map, like around the coast. And then he points to himself. He's like, Sharsane. And then the last one, he points to the middle of the map. And he says, Them.
Them?
You're like Them, the goddess of wind, Them? That's the same name as the goddess of wind.
But he said he's not a god.
Yeah, but people might mistake them as gods.
Can we go to her?
Yeah, how far away is she?
Is she like on our path?
Like, who did he want to see? Why did he want to go north?
He points to the north and he says a name. But it's not like one that you guys are familiar with.
Okay, how far away is that person versus them?
Well, so what you know is that you could probably, if you travel for a week, you could get to the north pretty easily.
All right, what about them?
To the middle of the continent is another story entirely. You would have to cross mountains, and then you'd have to go into the vast, which you don't even have to make a history roll. Everybody who lives on the continent knows that the middle of the continent is this horrible, desolate, mountainy, rocky area that is called the Vast. And there's a reason why no kingdoms claim it, because it's a wasteland and it's full of dangerous creatures and monsters.
Okay. Can we meta for a second so I can remember exactly why he wanted to go up north and why we thought it was in our benefit to take him north? Because I can't remember.
You guys were going north to do research.
And to get the orb.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes,
were
I
looking
know.
for an orb.
Yes.
Do you remember which orb?
The fire orb.
Was it?
No.
That-
I don't think so.
The water orb?
I thought it was Earth.
But why were we
Related.
going to take him north? Why were we taking him north?
Because we were going north anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought might as well. And
Yeah.
what did he want to go north for?
We
we
didn't
couldn't
really
tell.
know
Okay.
because he talked funny.
Mm. Was it a wind orb by chance?
So it was the only one we didn't.
Goddess of
The
wind.
goddess of
Yo. A little too loud.
We have to go
Come
to them.
Yeah.
okay,
It doesn't matter.
Done with meta.
Bro, I was never in meta.
Can I roll some sort of check to try to figure out how long, or could you just tell us how long it's going to take if we wanted to find the goddess of wind?
I think we should have the orb on us first.
Well, how did we get to the orb without going there first?
Because she's to the west. She's like in the middle of the continent.
Okay, but if we're technically going, if she's
she's
we
not,
already know
she's
You
where
not-
guys
orb
are on the
is.
west. You'd have to go east to the middle
Yeah.
of the continent.
To try
And
to.
we already know where the orb is, the general
do
area.
we know though? Because like
If we get there, then it's not there. It's,
a waste of time.
But then he gets where he wants to go.
why?
But then
I
if
think
we
we should
find
see
her, then we can also figure out.
Remember that when Olin split the group, one of the reasons was to keep what you had separate so that
'Cause it
your
was so-
enemies can't like do one fell swoop, attack you and get all the stuff.
Right.
And that you have the artifact, which you have not shown anyone.
Yeah.
That Olin has the void crystal, and that hopefully if you guys find another crystal and Caedmon and Alori find another crystal, that you guys can start to gather up the rest of the crystals that would make that artifact work.
I think
Those
we,
are things that you know.
we need to find the orb. That's more important than going to find them.
Do you understand?
But
The wind. The orb is a wind
and she's
orb.
The goddess
She's
of wind.
the goddess of wind.
No, I understand that, but she doesn't have the orb on her.
How do you know
But that's
that?
the thing.
Because-
How do we
because
know?
We didn't even know she existed
We
till
were
2 minutes
told that
ago.
the orb was up north, which is why we were going in the first place. And
Yeah.
now we're told that this goddess of wind is to the east,
Yes.
which is 2 different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that she can't help us.
And also, what makes you think that
And
she wouldn't
also
want to
how-
take the orb for herself?
Because why does she need it in the
Freaking
first place?
goddess. She doesn't need more orbs.
I don't know. It just seems really trusting.
You are
Or
the most.
I kind of agree
Yeah,
though.
but is she more paranoid than Tony, though? Let's be honest. I mean, all right, so the
Maybe.
I
the,
kinda
the Duke is kind of
agree.
like looking at you guys, and he, like, as he's looking at the maps, he goes, he asks the blonde elf some questions, and she points to the pen, and he writes down his question, and she looks at it, and she, like, researches it, and she's like, he wants to know if you guys have ever seen the king.
No, we haven't.
As in, like, the current king?
well, the current king is also the old king, and he doesn't know right now that the
Have
old
I
king
seen
is the
him?
current king.
Who was?
And it's not about if we have or haven't. It's about if we should keep lying to him. And
He points to the blonde elf again, and he holds up his, like, a circle,
he wants to see the coin again.
and she gives him the coin. He holds it up and he points to the picture on the coin of the king, because it's a minted coin from the king of Amalekon.
Brother.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Your brother.
Have we seen him?
You, Beth, Mantra, thinks that picture on the minted coin looks very familiar.
I'm thinking. Do we
Is he the
know?
one that the princess is involved with?
Or who was the one?
There's no more princesses, though.
Who was the person that was asking earlier
My
if
last thing.
Sina and Mantra would fight, and we had to disguise them? Do we know who that was?
No.
When
No
we were in the
relation.
capital?
He-
Okay.
Is it?
You recall that when you and Caedmon and Alore and Olin were in Kadimki Kala, and you did the expedition, how there was, like, the blonde elf who called himself Finup and had Trixie and Willie working for him. Remember the conflict that you guys had at the end?
Is
And,
he
like,
Finup?
you guys were working with
That
the
sounds really
black-haired,
familiar.
fancily dressed Finup guy.
Is he Finup?
He kept saying
It's-
Finup, yeah.
Or
Like if you remember the Duke a while ago, he knew
Yeah.
Finup.
He's
Finup.
old, and he's
and
he's an
also-
elf.
Oh, wait,
And
was
he's-
that the word for orc?
No.
Is he Finup? Do I recognize him as Finup?
The man on the coin
Yeah.
looks very similar to the blonde elf who identified himself as Lord Finup.
How did I? That makes so much
So
sense.
she's like, he wants to know if any of you have seen his brother.
Should I tell him?
That's up to you.
She goes, have you? You've met the king before?
Yes, but he was in disguise. I didn't know he was the king. He identified as someone else.
She writes that down and, like, shows it to him, and he goes, and then he writes something else down. And she looks at it and she's like, huh. He says his brother doesn't want to go back.
To the kingdom?
She writes a question down and shows it to him. And then he points to the maps that he drew. And he points to Arakazine.
Oh, maybe he erased Arakazine from the history of the continent because he doesn't want anyone to know that it exists, so nobody sends it back. And so he doesn't have to go back. That would kind of make sense.
Go to Rexine?
She writes down, basically summarizing kind of what you just said. and she shows it to him.
Didn't we go to a Rakazine?
What's it? Can we ask, what's it like there?
He erased Arakazine.
You don't know.
The king.
You've never heard of a
From the
Rakazine.
history.
You've never, in fact, there are no other continents.
Yeah, it's still there.
You've grown up in a world where the continent that you are on is literally the entire world. It is a known scientific fact that if you tried to sail a ship past 10 miles off the coast in any direction, that ship will never return.
Known. It's known. Like
It is known.
100%.
100%. No ship that has ever gone past 10 miles off the coast has
Do we
ever
know
returned.
anyone who's ever been?
Or do we know exactly what
Has-
happens, or do we just know that it doesn't return?
You know that it doesn't return.
That's
So-
all we know.
This is like a known fact.
So
Your
maybe-
world is flat. That
Has the Duke
surrounding your continent that you've lived on is
Okay,
a
alright.
ring of water, and after that, it's
cool? Has the Duke been to a Rakazine? And can we ask him what it's like there?
he writes down. She writes it down. He writes it down. Basically, he's saying that he's from a Rakazine.
What's
That the Malakuni are from a Rakazine originally.
What's so bad about a Rakazine?
Ask him that.
She writes it. He writes it. And his response, she's reading it, and she's like, this is kind of doesn't make sense. She said the gods took them away from Arakazine
Okay. And brought them here?
and brought them here.
Okay.
But it's more than just the Malakuni. She writes something down. And,
Was it
and
the 8 other ones?
he nods, and she writes down more, and she's like, it's not just them. The gods took them away from Arakazine is more than just them. She like asks him, she points to the maps and asks a follow-up question, and then he writes down another response, and he says, he's saying that Nuofotmai, when he says the gods took us away from Arakazine, he means all of it.
Like every single person on Arakazine?
Like where we are now was part of Arakazine.
Oh, they split.
Oh,
Like,
Oh.
She writes down furiously writes down a follow-up question, and he nods, and then he writes down another response, and then she translates it, and she's like, the gods took part of Arakazine and the people with it and made this, Nuofotmai. And he's like, Osu, Nuofotmai.
Ask him if it was a punishment.
She writes that down. She shows it to him, and he's like,
For what?
Ask him for what?
she writes it down. He responds, for angering the gods?
Okay, but how did he anger the gods?
He responds. He said they were trying to return to Eos.
Okay. Okay, okay, I really think that we should have him eat her.
Or
I think we should pay
Why?
like.
Why?
I think we should
Because-
say thank
because
you,
she-
give her like a little gift, and
She
be like,
knows too much.
no, we're not gonna kill her. That's
We're
all.
She's
already,
gonna
like,
die
that
anyway.
is
Someone's gonna
so-
find her and kill
we're
her.
already
Shitty.
like on the run from people. I don't think it could get much worse.
I don't know.
So-
You don't get an award for being a nice
She
person.
literally was the one who warned us. I don't think that she would go out and purposely.
I don't think so.
She
I don't
is
think it would be
She
purposeful.
writes down
She's
another question,
giving
shows
us
it to him.
information that
He-
could
He looks at
impersonate
it and he nods,
her. Imprison her.
What is
and then he
Exactly,
writes
and then
down
she gets
another
tortured.
response.
what's going on?
What
here?
I'm saying is she's
What
not
are you-
gonna
Okay,
snitch.
what are you
because
asking?
she's
Just wait.
What are you asking him?
She asked another question, and then he wrote a response, and now she's looking at it, and she's like, he knows things that I'm not sure if he understands, like, what this means.
Okay. Dish it out.
She like tries to read it, and she's like, most people died when the gods took them from Arakazine. And then she scrambles through the paper and she finds another sheet and she points to it, and he nods. She's like, but the 8, remember he said there were 8 who were like him? His brother's one of them. He's one of them, and there are 6 others that they were the ones who changed.
To survive. Were they? Did they
change
changed. She's like,
physically?
that's the part I don't understand. Yeah. She writes down a question and shows it to
Are
him.
they hiding?
They're
And
in
then
like
he writes down
they
another
change their
question.
forms to like.
And she's like, oh, that makes sense. The gods changed them when they came here.
What did the gods
And he
change
nods.
them? What did the gods change them
And he
from?
points to you. And he points to you. And
So we're all changed?
and she's like, I guess they changed them from humans to elves and other races. She goes to her book and she flips through quickly, and you notice she gets to like a section of like kind of like illustrations, and she shows all these things. And he's like one by one. You see basically these are illustrations of like common races on the continent. And he nods, he nods, he nods. And then she writes another question, and he looks at it, and he writes another answer. And then she's like, okay, so Arakazine doesn't have these races. None of the races. Dwarves,
It's all
halflings,
human?
gnomes. She points to all the pictures, and he nods, and he's like, oh, Sue, oh, Sue. And she's like, he seems impatient. And she's like, okay, God. She's like, he's saying that all of our races don't exist. That the gods changed them when they came here. And that the 8 that survived, like him and his brother, they all changed from humans to these different races. So when he says that the Malakuni are all elves, I think he literally means it. Like, I think that their blood runs through all elves. I think the blood of one of these other 6 people runs through all tieflings. The blood of
Each one of them is a different race, and then their distinctive blood is
Something
what
like
created
that.
the races.
something
Okay.
like that.
I think.
And that's why he said he can't show us what he looks like, because it would be like an explosion.
Okay.
But if he has a brother that is an elf, or
Ask
that
him
looks like
ask
an
him
elf,
what race is the king.
because Finoop looks like an elf.
He
So-
hears you say that, and he's like, Finoop, 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 Finoop.
Descendant? Is that what that means? Does Finoop mean descendant?
Human?
She's like,
No,
what does
Finoop
it
is the
mean?
name of the guy.
She goes,
But he keeps calling us Finoop.
Yes.
Finoop is like a generic term for like a,
Human?
kind of like an other. And then she writes like a follow-up question, and he's like, she's like, it's not like him though, not a celestial. It's like a lesser other, like a demon. But not because you have horns. Like he calls that, like, orcs a demon. And she goes back to the different pages, and And then he kind of goes through and corrects her on all these different things. He says that his brother and he are both elves, but they're not elves. They're
They've been changed.
this other
to
thing that he
elves.
referred to, this Lan. But they've been changed to elves.
Wasn't Lan his word for celestial?
Yeah.
Well,
Can you ask him what he eats? Because if he won't eat the rabbit blood, I don't know what he's going to eat.
He writes down a response, and she's like, he doesn't need to eat or sleep.
okay.
Then ask
That-
him.
that
Ask him
thing-
why he took my finger.
That was an anger thing. That wasn't a hungry
She
thing.
writes that down, and he laughs. And then he writes down a response. He said he'd never seen one like you before.
So he wanted to know what I tasted like.
She's like, do you want me to ask
Yes.
him that? She writes it down,
Was he scared?
and he nods.
He
She's
thought
like,
you were a
I think he
snack.
thought maybe you were like a monster.
Okay.
Sorry, no offense.
What about me?
Okay, this is not. We should not just like keep finding out what he thinks of us. I think we should wrap it up and like leave this place before.
She's like, look, I'm traveling north anyway. She's like, it's part of my research. I can travel with you guys for a little while, but
That would be great.
I think
That sounds
so.
awesome.
That would be
That would
tight.
be
she's like, I don't have a lot of money, so some of you all are going to have to
We got
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
buy some paper and more ink from
Yeah.
the temple before we
Yes.
go, because we've gone through quite a
Okay.
few sheafs of paper.
We should get before
We should
we
get an
leave the
Etch-a-Sketch.
town. We should get.
Yeah.
we should get paper or parchment, ink,
Quills.
quills,
She goes,
and
you know what,
food.
that's not a bad idea. When you go to the temple to buy the ink and the paper, see if they have like a slate and some chalk. She goes, that way we could just quickly write ideas down and he can answer. Get 2 of them. Get a
Uh-huh.
couple of slates and get some
Chalk.
chalk.
Do you want to wait here?
Environmental.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I wouldn't walk around with him.
Okay.
Not that there's anybody in this town who is that educated, but you never know who's traveling through on their way south
Should
to
we
the capital.
disguise him?
And then we can discuss.
She goes,
him.
well, I
later.
don't know. He kind of looks normal right now.
Yeah. We
So-
can,
As long
we
as he's
can
not
keep
talking.
Him, yeah, we can keep him wherever for right now. Should we also stock up on food? And do you
we
have
need
any
to?
special requests?
I'm,
I don't think we
pretty
need to, but I
flexible.
think it would be like a good idea just to get like some.
By the way, since we may be traveling together, she's like, my name is Zara.
Oh, nice to meet you, Zara. I'm
Hey,
Wo.
I'm Tetra.
I'm Mantra.
Sorshe.
Nice to meet you. Okay, well, yeah, maybe go to the temple and get that stuff, and then, I don't know, we could leave at night,
Yeah.
maybe
Sounds
less
like a good idea.
noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take a nap.
Okay. All right. So the Duke seems to be content. Like, he seems to be a little bit relieved that at last someone like understands what he's been saying. But you notice every once in a while he'll look at the gold coin, the minted gold coin with the picture.
She just gave him a gold coin.
No, he's not like taking it, but like it'll be like on the desk.
I know,
and
but
he'll,
she
like,
just
look
said
at
she had
it.
like no money, and a
And then
gold coin
she'll-
seems like
and
a
then
lot.
Yeah,
she's-
because it
he,
was
like,
the
sets it
only
down.
reference to the king that she has.
I know, but I think it's funny that she even has a gold coin in the
Okay,
first place.
it's whatever.
So would you like to go get?
So you go to the
Yeah.
temple, you're gonna subtract 5 gold, and you just get a bag full of like paper and a couple vials of ink and a few more quills, and he gives you a few
Like
slates and some chalk, and even the bag to go with it, and like a prayer bead and a couple candles. He's like, "Thank you, sister. What a generous donation to the temple."
I'm
And
like,
he's
thank you.
he, like, puts
I
it in the-
love you, and then I leave.
the church locks box. All right, so you go back to the inn. You go up to the room, everything is fine. And you guys order room service, and then you eat, and you go to the bathroom, and then
Tinky Winky.
evening begins to fall, and somehow your friend Sina has still not shown up. And that's where we're going to end this episode of the Vixens. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, liking, subscribing, clicking on the notifications bell. Thank you for all your support. We love you. Goodbye.